Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Devaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, we'll do it together. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudирayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gunave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, so today we're doing what, 37 and 38. Iti langita maryadam.
Ilang Tamaryadam.
Oh, for those of you on Zoom, we're doing Canto 1, Chapter 18, text 37 and 38. Iti langita maryadam.
Ilang Tamaryadam.
Takshaka saptame hani.
Takshaka Taptamehani.
Dangshyati sma kulangadam.
Dakshati Sma Kulandaram.
Jodito me tatadruham.
Jodito Mitatadruham.
Iti,
I
thus. Langita,
Gita
surpassing. Maryadam, etiquette. Takshaka,
Takshaka
snake bird. Saptame,
Taptamehani.
on the 7th. Ahani, day. Dangshyati, will bite. Sma, certainly.
Certain
Kula angaram,
Kulangaram.
the wretched of the dynasty.
Richard of the dynasty.
Chodita,
The
having done. Me, my. Tatadruham,
Tatadruham.
enmity towards the father.
Enemy towards the father.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Brahmana's son cursed the king thus: on the 7th day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of that dynasty, Maharaj Pariksit, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. Purport: thus the beginning of the misuse of Brahminical power began, and gradually the Brahmanas in the age of Kali became devoid of both Brahminical powers and culture. The Brahmana boy considered Maharaj Pariksit to be Kulangara, or the wretched of the dynasty, but factually, the Brahmana boy himself was so, because only from him did the Brahmana caste become powerless, like the snake whose poisoned teeth are broken. The snake is fearful as long as his poisoned teeth are there, otherwise he is fearful only to children. The personality of Kali conquered the Brahmana boy first, and gradually the other castes. Thus, the whole scientific system of the orders of society in this age has assumed the form of a vitiated caste system, which is now being uprooted by another class of men similarly influenced by the age of Kali. One should see to the root cause of vitiation and not try to condemn the system as it is without knowledge of its scientific value. So I'll read text 38 and then we can go back to 37. No call and response on this one. Tatyobhyetya shramam balo gale sarpa kalevaram pitaram vikshya dukkarto mukta kanto rurodraha. Rurodaha. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly. Purport. The boy was not happy because he committed a great mistake, and he wanted to be relieved of the burden on his heart by crying. So after entering the hermitage and seeing his father in that condition, he cried loudly so that he might be relieved, but it was too late. The father regretted the whole incident. Actually, I'll work my way back to the other verse. It's interesting that when you look at the verse, it's, the boy cried because he saw a snake on his father's shoulder. But in the purport, Prabhupada's going to the root cause of his grief. Really, even if he didn't realize it at the time, because his father chastises him afterwards, right? He kind of does. My dear boy, it's not the kind of, in this day and age when we get chastised, we get called other names besides my dear. But he's telling him you made a great mistake, and here's all the things that are going to go wrong now in this age because of what you did. And so we know deep down inside, we may do something that we think is okay. We may think it's justifiable, but we don't feel happy. And sometimes we don't want to admit or look at the fact or the root cause of our unhappiness, right? We may want to blame somebody else. So we may go and offend a Vaishnava, and then we're unhappy because of the offense, but we blame it on them. See what they did to me, how they made me unhappy, see how they stressed me out, see how they, and so we may blame others. So Srngi in this state of consciousness, he might have still been, going back to the hermitage, seeing the snake on his father's shoulder and still making such a big thing out of it. And not that a child shouldn't care if there's a dead snake on his father's shoulder, but the way he reacted was very much overreacting. And Prabhupada talks about that a lot. But Prabhupada's saying that the root cause, he wasn't happy because he committed a great mistake. And so he cried out of that grief also. And of course, the father at this point doesn't even know what's going on, right? We're going to see, like, he wakes up and sees a snake and just throws it off to the side. He's like, what's up? He doesn't look at the snake, go, who did this? Who's the person who did this to me? Just, so what's going on? So it shows that dichotomy that this child is making such a huge thing out of it. And the father's just, Prabhupada says he just flings the snake aside. He doesn't see it as a big deal. But we're going to go back to 37. So, but I just wanted to say that when we're feeling some, there's different reasons to feel grief or distress. Sometimes we feel grief because we may lose the association of someone who's very dear to us, right? That's appropriate grief. We lose their association. But sometimes we feel grief or distress mostly because we actually did something wrong, but we just think it's everyone else's fault that we're unhappy. So, if we are unhappy in Krishna consciousness, we have to look at the root cause, what we may be doing wrong. Either we're chanting inattentively or we're committing offenses to other Vaishnavas, or we're engaging in some sort of sense gratificatory activities that seem good at the time, but end up in the long run giving us some unhappiness, right? Because Krishna says that in the Gita that distress comes from contact of the senses with the sense objects. When you try to gratify your senses, you become unhappy, you become distressed, you become anxious. It doesn't bring happiness as we think it will. It's quite the opposite. Okay, so let's go back to 37. It's such a heavy thing. Have you ever done something wrong where it's like you did something and you think, oh man, I really messed up. But then everyone's like, it's okay, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. This is a big deal. This Prabhupada says that the age of Kali becomes devoid of Brahminical powers and culture because of what this boy did. So he set off a domino effect, a chain of events that's going to bring Kali Yuga into the forefront and create this, as Prabhupada said, vitiation. So that's like a degradation of a particular system, or something becomes impaired. actually. So let's see. It's always good to know. Prabhupada uses such good words. Vitiate, to spoil or impair the quality or efficiency of. It's such a perfect word because it's the quality, right? This is what Prabhupada's talking about here, is the quality of the caste system, the so-called caste system, right? We know it's a the Varna system, Varnas and ashrams. And then another definition of vitiate is to destroy or impair the legal validity of. So it's bringing down the quality. So, and Prabhupada says this here, one should see to the root cause of vitiation and not try to condemn the system as it is without knowledge of its scientific value. So Prabhupada's saying that basically, you impair the efficiency of something. It doesn't make that thing at its root wrong. Right? If something is impaired, it doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing, right? So we see a corrupted caste system, and then we think, okay, then you just do away with it. You just do away with this whole system. But we're not meant to do away with it. We're meant to repair it. If something becomes broken, you fix it. You don't throw it away. Well, in America, you throw it away. But in America in the past, it used to be that if something was broken, you fixed it, right? Now they just toss it and they get a new one because anyways, the latest model came out and almost look for excuses to throw things away so we could buy new things. But the idea is something so, this is when we see in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam that the caste system, or I shouldn't say, I'm not even going to use that word, the Varna system is very, very important and scientific. So at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, one of Arjuna's arguments for not fighting the Battle of Kurukshetra is that there will be Varna Sankara. And he goes through the whole, like, how that's going to happen. The good men will die, the women will be unprotected, then they'll engage in Varna, in Varna Sankara. What exactly does Varna Sankara mean? Prabhupada translates it in a particular way, but there's a definition of it that's like a direct definition. So what is the definition that Prabhupada gives, and what's the direct definition of Varna Sankara?
Unwanted progeny.
Yeah, unwanted progeny is the definition Prabhupada gives. What does it literally mean?
It means according to Varnashram, whatever progeny has to be like, according to the Vedic injunction, if a person is marrying to a woman, then the progeny who is born will not be unwanted, which is basically according to supporting. He is married and he has a wife, and the child is born from the sacred marriage ceremony.
Okay, so do you know so literally Varna Sankara means mixed Varnas.
Yes.
And so, like you said, like two people. So when you have a marriage where now it's not impossible to mix the Varnas. It's not completely a wrong thing to do. But when it's mixed in the wrong way, it has to be mixed in the proper way if it's mixed at all. Typically, it's not mixed. But in the, I think it's the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, it describes that men shouldn't marry higher than their Varna. Women can marry higher than their Varna, but men shouldn't marry higher than their Varna. So there could be a mix, but it has to be done properly. Better it's not done at all, I would say. But when you have Varna Sankara or mixed Varna, what ends up happening is people don't know what their duty is because they have a mixed mentality, right? So someone may come in this world in a mixed Varna situation and say, I kind of have some Brahminical tendencies and I kind of have some Kshatriya tendencies. And, so of course, as Prabhupada says, we're all born as Sudras in this Kali Yuga, but to be born as Sudras, it doesn't mean we never can have the qualities of a Brahmin. It just means we're born into a situation where the society is acting like Sudras in a sense. obviously there's still varnas. There are people who are very much have a Vaishya mentality, right? They think like a Vaishya. I worked with, I don't know if I told this story before, sorry if it's a rerun, but I worked with somebody who had a Vaishya mentality. And I was talking to him one day and he said that this was after we weren't working in that company anymore, or he was, I wasn't. And he said that the owner of the company was giving away monitors. They were getting new computers in the office, new monitors, and they were getting rid of the old ones. So he said, yeah, so he's getting rid of them. And I said, oh, did you take one to have at home? And he goes, no, I want all of them. I'm going to try to sell them. And I was thinking, I was like, I wouldn't have even thought of that. His first thought was, how can I make money off of this? And in my mind, even after he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. There's a thing where you can sell stuff. So he had very much a Vaishya mentality. He's always looking, how can I turn this into a money-making situation? And I was just thinking, is this better than the monitor you have at home? Or are you going to be replacing it? So people they have a certain nature and then they need to engage that nature. And if they're, Prabhupada says with these different varnas, whatever you do, he says in the Bhagavad Gita that regardless of which varna you follow, it should always be done in Krishna consciousness. So even if someone has a Vaishya mentality, for example, they should do it all for the service of Krishna. And then one gradually becomes purified of that consciousness that's in the modes, and they don't have to act within those varnas anymore. So Prabhupada says, but be up until that time, we should act in that varna. So, so that's why in the Bhagavad Gita, so we have, 335. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. And then, so why it's dangerous later on in the 18th chapter of the Gita, text 59, Krishna says, if you do not act according to my direction, he's speaking to Arjuna, obviously, and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. So if you have the nature of a Kshatriya and you try to act as a Brahmin, your nature as a Kshatriya will come out anyways. And then you'll be fighting with the Brahmins instead of the people you're supposed to be fighting, which is the Kshatriyas, right? So that nature comes out. And it's better to engage that nature in righteous activities, right? So if someone, each of the varnas is valid. If someone is a Sudra, right, they work for others to help support the other varnas, right? They work to support the other varnas. And the other varnas, if they're engaged in Krishna consciousness and the Sudra is engaged in helping those or doing work for those engaged in Krishna consciousness, there's transcendental benefit. If someone's a Vaishya and they use their money to help support the Sankirtan mission, they're engaging in Krishna consciousness. If someone's a Kshatriya and they use their nature to protect innocent people, and they, of course, we're going to protect, that includes the devotees, they're engaging in Krishna consciousness. And same with the Brahmins. You could be a Brahmin and not be Krishna conscious, right? Brahmins can misuse their nature to just become proud of their knowledge. They can mislead others. They can use that knowledge to try to gather followers, right? We see in the story with Bali Maharaj that his guru, Srikacharya, he didn't want Bali to give whatever Vamana was asking for. Why? Why didn't he want him to give in charity? You know? Why did Srikacharya tell Bali not to give Vamana what he asked for? Anyone on Zoom know?
Yeah, because he knew that Vaman Dev is Vishnu, and then he will take away um, all the things from Bali Maharaj. Yeah, one more thing I heard is like he was thinking about like if he gives away everything, how he will give the dakshina, like in a humorous way.
Right. Yeah, how will he? Yeah, if Sukacharya was thinking, Vamana, this is God, and he's going to take everything. You think he just wants 3 steps land, he's going to take everything. Don't do it because then I won't get my paycheck, right? That's his whole thing. Don't do it. Prabhupada said that because Sukacharya was concerned that now I'm not going to get my money either. And so that's an example. And that's why Bali was it wasn't wrong for him to reject the instructions of his spiritual master because his spiritual master went off the rails, right? He was now telling him something that was against Guru Sadhu Shastra. It wasn't lining up. And so there was no offense in him disobeying that order because in the end, the whole point of a guru, the whole point of the Brahmanas is to lead us to Krishna, to surrender to Krishna, to give everything to Krishna. And here he is attached to the wealth and telling and misleading his disciple or trying to mislead his disciple to tell him like, don't give it to him because I want for myself, want to take for myself. So, so even the Brahmins, and we see that now. It's not that there were never any corrupt Brahmins in the past. We could see in the story of Bali Maharaj, right? There was always corrupt Brahmins. But what Srngi did was he started the whole downfall of the whole Brahminical order. That's then, as Prabhupada says, it becomes vitiated, it becomes corrupted, it becomes broken, but it can be fixed. And so, and so to fix that system is to get everything back in order. That's those who are Brahminical will lead the others who have other natures because the nature that we have or the varna that we're in is based on our nature by our acts by gunas, guna and karma, right? So guna is the quality of, it's the modes that we're in basically, right? So Brahmins in the mode of goodness, Kshatriyas and passion, Vaishyas and passion and ignorance and Sudras and ignorance. So by those qualities, we act accordingly. And then when we dovetail any varna in Krishna consciousness, it becomes purified to those modes. And once one's above those modes, they're above the varna system. It doesn't mean that we have to stop acting within the varna system because obviously Arjuna was a pure devotee, right? So he's not really acting in the mode of passion. He's acting in transcendence when he's following Krishna's instructions and fighting on his behalf. He's no longer in the modes. So one can still act in their varna, but they're above their varna once they go above the modes, right? Because that's the only reason why we're in certain varnas is because of the modes that we're in. And all of the scriptures talk about basically we're in this world because we're still in the modes. So if we are not pure devotees yet, it means we're in the modes to some extent, and we have to go above them. So we don't want to stop. Sometimes we can get stuck in the mode of goodness, especially even as devotees. We can get stuck in the mode of goodness because we have a lifestyle that's the mode of goodness, right? We get up early, we are clean, we take showers, theoretically, we keep our space clean and clutter free. We follow a vegetarian diet. We're not violent against others. All these things are in the mode of goodness. But we can get stuck there if we're not intentionally doing our service in Krishna consciousness, if we're not trying to be attentive when we chant our rounds, if we're doing things for name and fame, like if we're leading a kirtan and we're doing it just so everybody can see how awesome we are leading a kirtan, rather than thinking, I'm doing this for the pleasure of the deities. I'm doing this for the pleasure of the devotees. I hope that Krishna accepts my offering of kirtan. That's a different consciousness. So it can't just be the externals. We can't just say, I'm a devotee because I have a bead bag on my hand. I'm a devotee because I know how to play mridanga. I'm a devotee because I'm living in a temple, or I'm a devotee because I have deities in my home. That's a start, but now the consciousness has to go into it. And we were just reading in the Bhagavatam, one purport where Prabhupada says, you have to serve Krishna in Krishna consciousness. He doesn't just say you have to serve Krishna. He says in Krishna consciousness. So the service has to be there with the consciousness, the proper consciousness. So we can get stuck if we're not trying to be attentive when we chant our rounds, if we're not trying to offer our kirtans to the deities and to the devotees, if we're not trying to do our service in Krishna consciousness, we're kind of just hovering on the mode of goodness, the platform of the mode of goodness. And the mode of goodness is still binding. We can still be bound to this world. So if we want to go above the modes, which is what we're supposed to do to get out of this world, to get reconnected with Krishna, we really have to make the effort to do everything we do in consciousness of Krishna and do it for Krishna. And we may not be at that level yet where we're always thinking of everything as being for Krishna, but we should at least practice. So if we're doing kirtan and we start to think like, yeah, this really sounds good. This is sounding great. I'm really good at this. Then we might want to just switch gears and say, wait a minute, this is for Krishna. I hope Krishna is enjoying this. Let me just look at the deities while I chant and try to, or whatever it may be, whatever we're doing, every service, cooking, cleaning, kirtan, class, arti, everything. It's just that we're not just there to get it done or to get fame for it. We're there to do it to please Krishna. And so we want to use the mode of goodness as the platform to go to transcendence, to go to Krishna consciousness and not just be stuck, because we can become complacent because you can find happiness, right? Happiness in the mode of goodness. I'm here. I got my beads. We got food. I got a bed. You could just kind of get stuck there. As long as I don't get kicked out of the temple, I'm good. Let's make sure I don't do things to get kicked out. We can get stuck there and just kind of find that happiness and not really go further than that. So we really have to make that effort. Really, I'm going to harp on it again when we chant our rounds. I harp on it a lot because it's for myself also. That really, when we chant, we bring our mind back whenever it wanders. We really try to pay attention to Krishna. We really try to avoid offenses. And we try to see all of our services as for the pleasure of Krishna rather than as something to just get done so I can get on to my sense gratification afterwards. So this mentality will reconnect us with Krishna and bring us back to the spiritual world, even before our body gets there. I shouldn't even say our body gets there, even before. We're not really separated from the spiritual world by a distance. We're separated by consciousness. So if you're in Krishna consciousness purely, you're in the spiritual world. And so really it's only our mind that keeps us from being in the spiritual world. Okay, I'm going to end there. It's 8:31. Does anyone have any points, questions, comments, realizations? Okay, if that's everything, we'll end here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.